Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hello and welcome to the State of the Economy podcast. I'm Jyothi Datta. In a few days now, the union budget will be presented, and every segment of industry and the social sector has its own and long wish list. And so it is with healthcare, whether it's pharmaceuticals, hospitals, health insurance, digital health, and of course, we have public health initiatives. So, to help us to take stock of where we are at now and look at some of these segments, what are they expecting from the budget, we have with us Ms. Shuchi Ray, partner Deloitte India, a seasoned hand on this sector. So, thank you so much for being with us, Ms. Ray.
Thank you, Jyoti.
So, we had spoken, ahead of the interim budget earlier this year, and much has happened since in health, whether it's the UCPMP or the ethical marketing code for pharmaceutical companies being put in place. So, let's start with that. Do you expect to see some mention of this or some tax fine tuning, in the forthcoming budget?
So I think they've already laid down the policy with respect to UCPMP, and after we looked at how the apex court gave its pronouncements and then the changes in Section 37(1) of the Income Tax Act, my sense is that there are not going to be many changes per se in the in that area, because everything has now been implemented. The last thing, which was UCPMP, which ultimately also puts responsibility on the CEOs to give declarations with respect to the practices which are being followed in various companies. I think it is now implemented, and the companies are in the process of implementing it. So I don't see there's anything extra which will be there in the budget with respect to that. However, the ask, one or two small asks which are there, keeping that in perspective. One is that because you can still give some of these expenditures are possible, that that there are certain expenses on which Section 194R is still applicable, which requires one to withhold certain taxes. So if those can be streamlined, that will be helpful, because that's already coming as a legitimate expenditure.
Right.
Yeah.
So also, the other thing is with most of these announcements, as you had pointed out last time, they're coming outside of the big budget announcement, as we've seen with the tax initiative that you've said. So, are there expectations when it comes to hospitals, whether it is public hospitals like All India Medical and all of that, or even private ones?
See, I think this has been a case in, pharmaceutical and healthcare, where we have seen more things coming out of budget rather than in budget. And that was also when the draft national pharmaceutical policy also, which was recently introduced. So my sense is, my expectation is that there should be some certain things which help in, implementing those policies. And that's going to happen when we have a higher budgetary allocation to this particular sector. So that is definitely a very, very clear ask. That's one. Second is from hospital perspective, something which is more related to skill building, because we do see a shortage of nurses and, shortage of doctors as well. But certain incentives, if can be given to the companies as well as hospitals with respect to skill building, that will be definitely a welcome step.
That's a huge area actually, because we are talking of a lot of impetus to infrastructure. And yes, as you pointed out, there are the shortages with the staff for all of these hospitals that are being planned. So we've talked about hospitals. Now with pharmaceutical companies, we've seen manufacturing support, we've seen PLIs, then some element of policy conversation on research and innovation. So do you see something more coming there? And an allied query, something similar for medical devices as well?
Yeah. See, one is that currently PLI obviously gave a lot of boost to the manufacturing, and it was quite focused on certain specific drugs also. And then obviously we had medical devices, and then again we had specific drugs divided into various categories. So I by and large, a lot of things were covered. But my sense is that it still got restricted to a certain set of companies. Now, in case we wanted to really make certain concessional incentives or concessional taxes or certain incentives available to companies at large, possibly not very specific to pharma, but which is also going to help pharmaceutical companies, is to extend the sunset date, which helps the companies to claim concessional tax rate in case they are opening their company or they are starting their manufacturing on or before a particular date. So we have the section 115 BAB in the Income Tax Act, which allowed the companies to claim concessional tax when they could manufacture or produce before 31st March 2023, and then in Finance Act 2022, the date was extended to 2024. If that particular thing gets further extended, and that's something which is a heavy, quite expectation by the industry, that in case that time limit for commencing manufacturing production is extended to 31st March 2026, then that's going to really give not only to a particular set of companies the benefit, but then to companies at large, to the taxpayers at large. So this is definitely, I think, one expectation, and it is also in line with Make in India as well. In fact, there is one more thing, it is only, this section provides primarily with respect to Make in India, focusing more on the manufacturing. Now, if I have to recommend, we were wanting to recommend is that if we can further extend this, not only to manufacturing, but also to the companies which get involved into research related activities. So can we also, if those companies also start getting concessional tax regime, then they get into this concessional tax regime, then you will actually see more companies getting incentivized or getting motivated to undertake the activities in R&D field. And that is something, which is basically more towards when we are talking about Viksit Bharat 2047. I think the work towards making India an R&D hub, innovation hub, and also creating an environment which is more towards research and development and innovation. Some of these incentives, whether to increase a weighted deduction, which used to be there, but now it's not there because the overall corporate tax rate was reduced. But if concessional tax regime can be given, or can be, it can be given to manufacturing, the recommendation is let it also be given to the companies which are purely into research and development.
Got it. Would that mean, looking at clinical trials as well, supporting trials or patent filings and things like that, IP related, filings?
Yeah, see, right. So what happens is that now in the industry, there are some players who will assist some of the companies in undertaking the clinical trials. So they act more like service providers only. And there will be some ones who will undertake clinical trials who are also holding the intellectual property. So my sense is that they will be wanting to extend some of these concessional tax regimes to the companies who are also going to be holding the IP, not only in the business of pure service provision.
Right. Do you see SOPs also for medical devices? They've kind of come into their own pretty much during COVID. You do have medical parks and all that sort of thing, but anything more expected from either the industry side, or what do you see?
See, medical device, I think again the focus has been there on manufacturing, but because of certain specific complex things, we have still not seen that much domiciled manufacturing in medical devices. While we are still seeing increased manufacturing, more local procurement, etc. But still, it has not possibly reached the stage that it was envisaged. The industry is bullish in terms of they wanted to do more manufacturing, and my sense of the industry is that they are wanting to even expand a lot also. So definitely, I think very specific manufacturing incentives, if given to this industry, is surely going to boost. But we will need to be mindful of that there are certain certain knowledge exchange that we will still need to continue to have with other countries.
Right, right. Also, looking at health insurance, the center's health insurance program, the Ayushman Bharat, which has been going from strength to strength. A lot of areas still need more work. But do you see that now, they've talked about the missing middle class, they've talked about the elderly. Do you see, more coming from?
I don't see that they'll be able to have elderly and middle class getting included in Ayushman Bharat. That's my sense, considering that, I mean, they've not increased the budget allocation itself in the last year. I will rather expect that if they increase the overall healthcare facility, overall, working on the healthcare infrastructure, making it available to people, using technology for making healthcare facilities available to people possibly will be in a position to afford. But and see, today also Ayushman Bharat, while it's a family floater scheme with and it is obviously for people below the poverty line. The idea was also to really cater to that level of class only who just cannot afford. So I will rather say that, make do the increased budgetary allocation, make it available, make it the infrastructure available to public at large, whether through technology, through telemedicine, and increase more hospitals empanelment with this Ayushman Bharat. At a ground level, my understanding is that there are a lot of hospitals when people actually go, even people having Ayushman Bharat card also, when they are going, they are possibly sometimes not able to avail those facilities in various hospitals. So empaneling more and more hospitals also is going to resolve this problem.
True. In fact, hospitals have also, I think that was one of their asks to, have some sort of flexibility and conversation on making it possible for more of them to get on board. So that will be watched. Interesting what you're saying. Health insurance outside of Ayushman Bharat has seen a lot of activity as well in terms of, the whole cashless regime, and again coming opening it up more for seniors. Do you see that getting some sort of a mention here in the budget?
See, one ask which has been there is that the GST rate for health insurance has been 18%. So this is something which is, there has been a recommendation to make it lower.
Absolutely.
I think if that happens, I think that's going to really give the boost because it will automatically reduce the cost in the hands of the buyers. I
I
think
think that,
beyond this, I don't see anything else.
no, and that's huge. I think because I think everyone is a lot of people have been quite concerned with that hefty tax component, GST component on their premiums and whatnot. Yeah, on their health insurance. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Finally, the all important question in terms of healthcare spending. I mean, we've seen it inching upwards, but in terms of pure play spending on just national health programs, much more needs to be done, isn't it?
Yeah, see, one is obviously we all know that developed countries have been doing, have been spending more than even 10-15% also. But even developing countries like Brazil, China also have been spending like 5-7%, 9%. So keeping that in perspective, I think we should definitely increase. Now, keep further, what is happening is that there has been still less allocation to within that to pharmaceutical. So, that is also one area which is required to be seen. Other is that how much spend we are making policies, and national pharmaceutical policy is also, clearly a testimony for that. There was another draft policy with respect to R&D, which was introduced 2 to 3 years back. So I think some of those policies have ultimately not got finalized. So one recommendation is that somewhere from the budgetary allocation, because all those policies, the moment they get finalized, they will obviously have to get implemented. And once they are implemented, they will require the budget to be practically implemented, I'll say. So from that perspective, while the policies are there, but then you do require budgetary allocation for implementing those policies. So some of these are purely fiscal support, and some which are more in the nature of tax incentives, etc. And some of these clearly are budgetary allocation, which is required to be done for better implementation of policies.
True. I think all eyes are on that research policy as well, especially when
Yeah.
you're talking
Yeah.
of going up the innovative curve.
Yeah, I know the R&D is something which is really the the buzzword this budget, and we are expecting R&D as well as on manufacturing. Definitely on both of these, there is definitely quite high expectation. for medical devices as well as for pharmaceutical, and keeping in perspective that the path to Viksit Bharat 2047, obviously, I think this budget is definitely going to uh, clearly keep a path or direct us in that direction.
True. So all eyes will be on, all of these things to see which of them is going to get really support from the union budget. With that, we bring this discussion to a close. And thank you so much for your time from the BL team and myself. Thank you,
Sure.
Mr.
Thank you, Jyoti.